Welcome to today's episode. Today we are talking about all things masterminds, and we have a great guest to help us with this topic today. Our guest is Liz Scully. Liz is an expert in masterminds. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here.
So, why don't we start off before we jump into masterminds? Tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and what you do.
Sure. So I spent 20 years working on big Hollywood films in post-production, very collegiate, very much working as a group together to produce amazing things. And it was wonderful, but it was very stressful. And we worked with very driven people and just awful things happened all the time, terrible calamities, but we got through it as a group. And when I left the film industry, because I'd heard of this thing called a weekend, and I quite liked that idea. And it's true, they exist. So once I'd started having those and I started my own business, I missed that collegiate feeling incredibly. And what we achieve in film is all based around what the group can do. And masterminds do exactly that. And that is why I'm so wedded to them. So I work as a business strategist now, and I work with all of my clients in mastermind groups. And it brings all of that good stuff from the film industry where, because if you think about it, a film director who is very directed and very clear and has a massive vision, but also has a huge number of things going on, is very like an entrepreneur that's pushed and time short and wants to do amazing things, but has a million things to juggle. They're really very similar. So that's what I do.
And for everyone's benefit, can you share a little bit about what is the definition of a mastermind and how do they work?
Sure. So sadly, there isn't an official mastermind definition, although one day it will happen, I swear. So masterminds are these kind of undefined things for many people. But for me, they mean specifically that they're a small group of people that meet and we talk about plans, we discuss things, we have spotlights where you can ask a question, and we make a plan this time that you will have achieved by next time. So it's got built-in accountability. It's got a place where you can ask questions, and you have longevity in it. So whether or not you're meeting for an intense in-person weekend and a month out you're going to discuss if you hit your goals, or most of the masterminds I run are online and we meet on every other week for a year. And during that time, you get this real support. You get accountability, you get a place to ask questions. Most importantly, you get a place to ideate, because you know yourself, when you're running a business, there really aren't many places that you can think without having to have a facade about, oh, everything's going, or your family who adore you, I'm sure, but aren't necessarily the best arbitrators of information. It's a really lovely little space, but with goals and with support. As you can tell, I love them.
That's great. And so these are smaller groups, let's call it around 7 to 10 people. Is that right?
You can run them in person. I would say people tend to run between 10 and 15 people, sometimes up to 20. The groups I run myself are between 4 and 6 because they're very intimate, they're very long running, and smaller, those intimate groups work together. Sadly, this does bring up something that there are a lot of things called masterminds that are simply a networking event with the word mastermind slapped on the front. And I think that's the problem. There isn't a definite brand that is a mastermind. So if you've been to something which was effectively a mixer over a weekend, yeah, I would say not a mastermind.
So we're ready to be inspired. Tell us a story or two about the benefits of masterminds, either participating them or running them, that you've seen.
Apart from the fact I've seen it in my own business, I am absolutely certain the reason my own business has grown quickly is because I spent all my time in masterminds hearing people give amazing advice to each other. So partially because you are in a position where you are thinking about someone else's business as well as your own, we can be a lot more open about it. You know, the way you can look at someone else's love life and think, oh, those people, they should not be together. But on the inside of the relationship, you can't see that at all. Well, it's the same with your own marketing, with your own strategy, with your funnel build, all of those things. You can't see inside the jar what the label says. So that feeling, it's really helpful to have someone else point it out. And because they have longevity, there is that feeling of cyclical stuff. Coaching doesn't tend to last that long, really, realistically. And many people are in my masterminds for years at a time. I think my longest client has been with me for over a decade because it works. And that feeling of a group holding a vision for you is incredibly powerful.
And so, what are some of the benefits if someone wants to join a mastermind? Is part of the benefit, tell me if I have this right, is part of the benefit because as an entrepreneur or a founder, you might tell yourself a story in your head of, I think this, I'm building this product will do this for these people. And if you don't have other people to bounce it off of, you could just tell yourself a story and then really believe it and then be off track. Whereas if you have this personal advisor group or a mastermind and you can run it by whether it's 5 to 15 people and say, what do you guys think? This is what I'm doing. People can give you feedback and advice and say, that's good, but have you thought about this? Or what about this? Or have you thought about it this way? Is that one of the big benefits of it?
Absolutely. And also, there is presumably somebody running the mastermind. So you will no doubt get some form of coaching from them as well. So yes, there's a sort of validation, but there's also the opposite side of that, which is if you're feeling a bit down, if you've had a tough day with clients, if you go to your mastermind, they're likely to point out all of the good things, all of the things that you're positive at. So they can scoop you up on a bad day. They can redirect you in a positive way. And what I find with my clients is often that it's subtle over time. We start and we put in place all of those lovely foundations. One of my clients said to me fairly recently, I don't know, I know it's the mastermind. I don't know exactly what you did, but it's as though the internet has backed the money truck up to my business and it won't stop now. And that's what a mastermind will do. It will allow you to course correct till you get really focused and you get the results you want.
So I'm interested in that. Is that because sometimes in the mastermind, you can get direct feedback that might be a little bit more direct or harsh than just a friend would give you advice? And it might be from people who have a lot of experience in the areas and they're coaching you based on their experience in the mastermind. And it may also be because they're holding you accountable. You said you were going to do this 2 weeks ago, and did you do it? Right? Are those some of the dynamics of why it drives that sort of impact?
Absolutely. And the other thing that is very helpful for us entrepreneurs is they will help tear you away from the giant shiny thing that halfway through the year distracts you from your original strategy. So they'll keep you on track. They'll give you feedback gently that maybe is going to be quite harsh if it came from someone else. And as you said, these people initially are not your friends. They are other business owners who, if it's a good group that has been carefully curated, they're at the same level as you, but they have different experiences. And that 360 vision about everything you're doing is incredibly helpful. And it really is very hard to find that elsewhere. If you've got an accountability buddy or the guys down the Chamber of Commerce, you have to have a facade with those people. Maybe not so much with an accountability buddy, but that's only one person. But this is a place where you can be truly yourself. And it is so rare in business.
So it seems to me that a lot of people would gather a personal advisory board very informally that they text or talk to on a regular basis and say, hey, you're my friend, you're a mentor, perhaps a coach, perhaps a colleague, perhaps someone they worked with before. They would have this informal group of people that they would get feedback when they're making decisions on things. And they would want to run it by some people just to see if they're thinking about it the right way. But when you do it informally, there's some challenges to that because you're not really keeping track over a longer period of time of the advice you've gotten, and you're not necessarily being held accountable and you're not necessarily being on track. Is that one of the main sort of pitfalls of just doing it informally, or are there other pitfalls of
Well, but
doing it?
that is definitely one of them. The other one is that our friends tend to think like us or be very similar to us. Hopefully, in a well-curated mastermind, there will be people who are kind and generous and willing to give you advice, but their mindset and their experience is completely different from yours. And that feeling of having somebody point out the holes that you weren't even aware there was an area that was a blind spot is so helpful. It's that getting that 360 feeling.
Yeah, I think the tendency of people who are friends would be to just endorse your ideas, not poke holes in them. That might be the more typical sort of thing, because you want to be supportive, right? That's a natural feeling. I want to be supportive of my friends. And some of them that I'm really close to, I might challenge them a little bit, but I more likely would want to be supportive and try to help them endorse their ideas and encourage them, like you're saying. I think encouragement is important, but I think there's some benefits to having it in a more formal group with people, like you said, the right curated people can give you more direct feedback. They may have experiences more relevant, right?
Absolutely. And to be clear, a mastermind is super supportive, but they're there to exactly do the thing that is hard to do for ourselves, to really hold the mirror up. And as you say, with our friends, there is often that feeling of you have to keep parity. You like if you there is a feeling that maybe you've asked too many questions, maybe it's not an equal exchange. In a mastermind, you're there because you're specifically there to give feedback. And that formal setup, it really does open the door to be, okay, I'm in the spotlight. This is what I need. And you can get feedback that is maybe stronger than you would normally get. Certainly when I'm coaching masterminds, there is always a session in maybe a year-long program. There's a session where very gently, I have to push people a lot harder. It's never the popular session. It's never one people particularly want, but that's what people are paying a coach or paying a mastermind leader for. You want that moment where, unlike your friends, they're going to very nicely slap you about a bit and say, what are you doing? In a way that maybe your friends never will.
So are masterminds for everybody, or are there certain roles and people and industries that they're better for?
Well, there are a couple of industries who they can't share client information. So medical patients can't really be in the same group. That's why we have support groups. And it's true for some legal situations. But if you are in that position and you're a lawyer, you can run them for other lawyers. You just can't run them for your clients. Apart from that, you need to like humans. I never used to require this as something, but if you don't like other humans, if you're not at least extrovert enough to be okay with 5 or 6 people in a group, yeah, not for you. But assuming that you like other people and you're happy to share information, then yes, they suit most people. And if you help people help decisions in your job, which most of us do, if that's part of what you do, then a mastermind is going to be a very natural extension of that.
Is it helpful for people at different levels of their career? I think a lot of founders would be part of masterminds and CEOs, but is it also helpful for people who are junior, mid, senior level? Is there some level that it's most helpful for?
It works for anyone. Obviously, you wouldn't want to be in a position where you've got a whole bunch of really senior founders with a brand new person, because both of them are going to be irked by that. The newbie is going to feel overly intimidated, and the senior people are going to be peeved that they have to answer very simple questions. So as long as it's stratified so that you're with a group of your peers, they work for almost everyone. And I've worked within corporations helping them set up their masterminds as well at all levels.
So what's better? Is the in-person or the online mastermind groups better, or are they different? I'm curious, since you said you've done both extensively.
They're different. So the higher up you go with masterminds, and there are masterminds that charge well into 200 grand a year, that kind of stuff. Obviously, for those people, it's actually easier to get them in person once or twice a year than to try and get them on Zoom every 2 weeks. Right? They do not have that kind of flexibility where they can carve out a weekend. In person, it's much more intense. There'll be slightly more people. There is more networking. Online, that's what I prefer. I was nomadic for a decade before the pandemic. In the before times, I used to move around a lot. And there, my clients didn't care as long as I was in the little rectangle. So from my point of view, it was great. From my client's point of view, they were getting feedback from all over the world without having to put shoes on. So for me, I think it depends what you're aiming for.
Do some people do a blend? Do some people do both?
Absolutely. Some of the really big programs that I've run masterminds as part of their program, they will have an in-person retreat and they will have a course, they'll have some one-to-one coaching, and they'll have an ongoing mastermind together. So if you're building a big, fat, lovely course that has all sorts of bells and whistles, mastermind is an excellent add-on to that.
So how do people find the right mastermind for them? Is there a directory, or is there a certain place you go to find the right curated group that you were mentioning? How do people do that? I'm just curious.
Sadly, it's not that easy. I wish there was the big fat mastermind.com type place. But the big thing is to ask your friends, ask around, ask within your own circle, follow people that run masterminds. There aren't many of us, but there are some, and make sure that you have personal recommendations for some of their work, and make sure they have some kind of training. Because the reason that I train people in how to run masterminds is for a good few years before I offered the course, in January and February, a lot of my friends and colleagues and vague acquaintances would contact me and say, I'm starting a mastermind. I've got people sold on it. I have no idea what I'm doing. And nobody wants to be the person who's paid for someone to run something, and they are frantically calling their friends saying, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me? So make sure they've got some kind of experience, some kind of training, and that somebody has vouched for them in some manner. Super important.
And when people are looking to join a mastermind, what are the questions that they should be thinking through to know, is this mastermind the right one for me? If there was 2 or 3 questions that they should be thinking about, what would this be?
The first one is, have you run masterminds before? Like that is my number one question. Is this the very first time you've done this? And if it is, I would need a lot more information about it, because it's a different skill. Have you done this before? Can I speak to some people that have done it before? What percentage of people continue from one section to the next? So if it's a year-long mastermind, how many people roll through to the next year? Because if it's like 1%, that would imply that they're not getting enough value to do it again. So you want a certain retention of clients, like a high retention of clients, ideally. And then, as with all coaches, I think you want to listen to a lot of their social media, listen to their podcasts and their lives, and see if you actually like them. Because if they annoy you in a 4-minute video, they are really going to annoy you in a 2-hour mastermind.
So some masterminds are free, but others have costs. And you said some of them go up to $200,000. How do people think about what they should pay to be a part of a mastermind?
To be fair, I actually don't know many people who are paying the high-end stuff. Most masterminds that I think are good, because if free masterminds, you can run your own and they can be fantastic, but they tend to fizzle out. As you were talking about with your friends, that I've noticed that within my clients and colleagues, that we'll just run a free one, often only lasts 3 or 4 months. So by paying, you've got longevity, you've got coaching, you've got support around it. And those programs seem to run, for a year-long program at a more senior level, is somewhere between 10 grand and 15, 20. Obviously, your mileage will vary. And what you want is something that isn't an outrageous stretch for your business. And whatever the results are, we're talking about business masterminds, but you can have masterminds for anything, whatever that you want to pool that information, that as long as the net gain from the mastermind. So in mine, I'm assuming that people will grow their business by at least 60 to 80 grand, say, minimum. So a 10 grand investment or a 20 grand investment for that is a perfectly reasonable thing to put your money down. They're the sort of calculations you want to be looking at. Is this the amount I'm paying for the mastermind? Is the outcome that I am fairly likely to get, is that proportional?
Yeah, I think that's a great formula. If you think about how much you would invest in being part of it, and can you get somewhere between 5 to 10x that value back, that would be great. I think investment for a lot of businesses. So what sort of impact have you seen when people take the plunge and they do this and they invest the time? Have you seen the people get that sort of success as a result of the masterminds?
Absolutely. I'm not going to be one of those people that says, oh, yeah, people have 10x their business during the time. But I've certainly seen people double or triple what they charge. And some of my people that have been with me for years, they're there because they get results. They are launching new programs. They are getting new clients. They are doubling, at least doubling their income. Actually, a lot of people double their income. It's not in the first year, though. In the first year, we put all of the foundations in place, results. The results come the year after when you build on those foundations. And I think that's the concern for me when people are looking at masterminds. If they're promising you the earth tomorrow, they're lying. It's not going to happen. These things take a while. Yourself in your own business, we build up to this stuff.
Absolutely. So I'm going to link to your website in the show notes because I think you have a lot of great resources there that I've checked out about masterminds, from being a part of masterminds to actually how to run a mastermind. So I think people should go check out all of those resources. But before I let you off the hook, if you met somebody like me and they asked you, can you just front me one of your favorite secrets about the magic of masterminds, what would you say?
Almost everyone can benefit from running a mastermind. You need a little bit of training. And just like running a webinar, you just need to know what to do. But they are, if you add them to your business, they're great to join, but to run one, they're amazing. There's no homework. Your clients love them, and they are, let's whisper it, lucrative, very lucrative. And they are super fun. And that is the secret, that because so many are badly run, it's hidden how great they are.
Why is that? Why are they so lucrative and so fun to run?
As said, my masterminds are 2 hours. As long as I am dressed and facing the camera, that's it. That's my prep. I don't know the questions that people are going to be asking me, so I can't prep. I have an amazing group that I have carefully curated. They give excellent advice. So even if for some freakish reason I couldn't answer the question that was asked, the other people are going to give great answers. And I know that because I have carefully curated them. So that is good. At the end of the call, they all get on with their goals. I go about my day filled full of their good thoughts. And basically, my job is to hang out with brilliant people discussing how to grow their business. It's just the best thing because I'm never short of ideas and things to test and things to try. So that's lovely. And each mastermind is like a little petri dish that if I want to ask a quick question or test a line of copy, or would you mind answering this survey, they're there and they're keen and they're paying attention and they grow together like this lovely community. It's just, as you can tell, I love them.
I can see why. That sounds like a lot of fun for sure. Any final thoughts before we wrap up? Anything I didn't ask that you wanted to share?
Just masterminds are great. And the problem is, for me in my industry, is that most people have never heard of masterminds. The few people who've heard of masterminds have either been in a terrible one or had a friend who was in a terrible one. I'm here to tell you that there are great masterminds out there. You've just got to look for them, and they are so worth it.
And you can live the dream. I love it. All right. Thank you so much for being with us, Liz. I'm going to link to Rethink Central in the show notes so people can get there easily, connect with you, and learn more about the wonderful world of masterminds. Thanks so much for being with us today.